Good morning, Steve.
Good morning.
So what happened inside the huddle with Michigan?
Well, for the second year in a row, my Wolverines beat down the Buckeyes. And there is nothing better, probably the greatest rivalry in all of sport, to wake up on a Monday morning after that weekend. And yeah, I'll be happy for the next year.
And wasn't Ohio higher ranked?
They were ranked second. We were ranked third. But the funny thing about that game is, not that anyone wants to hear this, nobody gave Michigan a shot. It was like last year, everyone was making excuses. It was the weather. Ohio State had the flu, and Michigan pounded them, pretty bad on the line of scrimmage. And they did the same thing again this year. They just punched them in the face, and they took all of Ohio State's punches and just kept with their game plan and ended up winning. It was great.
Well, I'm excited for you.
So am I.
Very good. And for Randall and his Trojan team.
Yeah, I think Randall and I are going to have a fun next, 60, 90 days, whatever it is, till the playoff.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, less than that. It's like 60 days, 30-some days.
Well, that's like us. We have an exciting 30 days or so left. Everything gets exciting.
Yeah.
I'm glad to see we have a full house today because Steve and I were talking earlier about having this show be all about you guys. Let's see if anybody disappears now. Coming back from Thanksgiving, we got a few weeks here, and then we head back into a big holiday season. Wanted to see what's on your minds. What's going on in your business? What kind of questions? What are you facing? Let's make this an open mic. You don't have to turn your picture on. Shane, go ahead.
Thank you, Shane, for coming on and raising your hand. You're muted, Shane.
Might be muted, yeah.
Can we unmute her? Does she?
I don't think I have that ability.
I can't unmute her. No. All right. Who else wants to come on the mic? One of the things I would be a nice topic of conversation, Sean, that could kind of chew up the conversation. I've always believed that art imitates life and life imitates art. And one of the things that sports gives you is an inside look into whether it's football, soccer, the World Cup going on. One thing that I think I learned the most of playing football, I know you played football for a number of years as well, is I don't think anything prepares you more for life than being part of a team and having to handle adversity. And I think, there are probably a few people that have been in the business for a short period of time. And I don't think that, like I said, not to talk negatively about the market. The market's going to be what the market's going to be. It's always going to be that. It's how you show up and handle adversity and the preparation that you put in for that moment so that, you're thinking ahead. The business is full of people that want to play checkers, the old saying, right? But it's really a chess game, and you have to be thinking ahead. And I think maybe we could talk about that. Like, what adversity might some of our teammates here on Inside the Huddle be facing and could use help with? And let's talk about that and how you mentally, because it's all mental to me. Adversity is all about mental preparation. You prepare for it, and how you work through it is not what's happening to you. It's how you're processing information. Do you agree with that?
I do, absolutely. Actually, I want to jump into it, but I think Shane has come back.
I think I was unable to unmute myself. I was struggling here Monday. Sorry about that. Does that work now?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay. So the adversity thing that you mentioned just now and what I wanted to ask about kind of tie together. I noticed in my business tracker that my likely to sells have gone way, way up. And some of that's because I've added some farming, but some of it's like really like truly communities that like haven't had hardly anything. Like now I'm seeing them all paying up. And so I think the adversity part, obviously with this market, it's, nerve wracking because to me, I think most of them are cold. They're not warm leads. They're probably mostly cold or maybe once moved, once met or something. So how do you strike that? Get that going when you're seeing the opportunity. You're like, hey, these likely to sells are starting to heat up when you know that most sellers right now are probably like, oh, good Lord, we're not going to get what I probably want to get. So That's my question this morning.
So first of all, congratulations on having them go up, because they are leads. They are targeted people to talk to. The first thing I would bring in, and Steve, I know you'll have more to add, but when we go in with a preconceived notion, it almost guarantees that outcome. We don't know what sellers are thinking right now. People who are selling for a reason. There's still a lot of good reasons to sell. And the market's changed, yes. You're not going to get what you would have gotten 6-8 months ago, but you're getting a hell of a lot compared to 2 years ago. So don't go in with a preconceived notion is the first thing about what the seller might be afraid of. We're going in, and I think this will lead to how to handle the fact that it's a relatively cold lead. We're going in to help people. If I saw someone having a problem and I never met him in my life, I would still go and help them, as I'm sure you would. Everybody on this call would.
Great
Steve,
point.
what do you think?
No, great points. And two things. One is, if you're getting a likely to sell, you have to remember that there's something in the algorithm. Just talk about the technology here for a second. Yes, it could be that they were just nosily interested about a listing that came active in the neighborhood or a house or in a community that they may someday want to be a part of. There's something that's happened in their ecosystem, however, that has triggered something we've picked up about them where they're playing in that space. So it may not be now. It may not be in 90 days. It may be 2 years from now. But it's every one of those leads. You have to approach them. Again, we're talking about diversity mentally, as if that is something I need to dig deep and drill down on, and get in relationship with my database in such a way as to understand what it is they're thinking. And then when you approach those likely to sells, as opposed to, I bet if I've got 200 likely to sells, 90% of them are junk. You approach it as if I've got a job to do, and then my job is to understand what they were doing in their ecosystem that triggered that snag, that we picked up on that. Something on the ecosystem picked up on it. And so that's being mentally prepared for whatever the outcome is, right? So if I look at it, I'm gonna make sure that I understand why they were in that space, as opposed to qualify. Well, it's kind of like they say, hey, Sean, this is the same thing we heard when we were starting out in the business. I got forever people say open houses don't work. They don't work. Doing floor time, if we have floor, it doesn't work. I mean, I used to hear that stuff every single day. And yet I had people in front of me role modeling success in those opportunities. The fact is, open houses are an opportunity for you to engage with people. You're in a business where people see a sign and you get to draw them in. There are people trying to sell stuff to folks, and I live near Camino Real here off of Poinsettia Road. If 2 million cars go by Camino Real and Poinsettia Road, and nobody knows that which one of those people driving those cars, those 2 million people, have a need for what it is they're trying to service or trying to sell. You've got people walking into your ecosystem, at an open house. So it's understanding that we are so gifted to be able to put signs, drive traffic. If you get a toggle that says likely to sell, you take that seriously and you prepare for whatever the outcome is, not hoping that it's going to be a good lead, but working to make sure that you don't let the lead get away from you. There's a way of looking at it. So,
and I'll add a couple other things from the studies that Compass has done with this. The average time, I believe, the average nurture time on a likely to sell was 150 days.
Yeah.
So right now, that means you have, by the way, Shane, about how many have popped up, would you say?
I think about 80. And I literally had like 4 in there. And so now I have about 80. And then I did do some extra farming. Like since this last spring, I was trying to kind of farm a little bit and put them in. And so that might be part of it. So a lot of them are kind of cold, but they're the communities that either I had a buyer at an open house say, I want it here. Or,
right.
They're the right communities in the right places. So
yeah.
I get nervous, I guess, because it is cold and I struggle with that anyway. But
so the good news is you have 5 months to warm them up on average.
True. Okay, that does help.
5 months. And Phil Jones, I think we've recommended his book before, Exactly What to Say. But Phil Jones, he said recently, what we do for a living in real estate, he thinks what our main job is decision facilitators. So that's what you're doing. You're an expert in this field. You're going to reach out, warm them back up, and then help them make a good decision. Whether it's to sell or not is academic. We're just helping them make good decisions. If they do want to sell, the statistic also, according to Compass, is 10%. So like Steve said, 90% may not be interested. Well, that's about right. But 10% is probably $200,000 to $250,000 of GCI sitting there.
Right. And you haven't had to spend a penny to acquire those leads. They're coming into you free of charge just by affiliating with Compass and having the database logged up into our CRM. That's it.
And Lisa just mentioned what may be triggering it, as Steve said, is that they're actually looking for someone else. They might be house shopping for their kids or friends. This is all about being curious. Now I want to go find out how I can help these people, help facilitate a decision.
Don't you think the greatest sales people, and I know people don't like that term, but are the most curious? That's a quality that they have that makes them great, as they're always coming from a position of curiosity and not judgment. Judgment is to say they're cold, they're not going to work. Curiosity says, it's my job to find out what they were doing that made that algorithm, and made that box tick off in our technology, right?
Right now, I haven't even looked up the stats yet. One of our agents, Alice Greliak, I don't think she's on the call today. She had her best year ever in 2021, right? Like most of the people here, I think, their biggest year. And then 2022 happened, and everyone decided this is going to be bad. Rates are up. Who wants to buy right now? Who wants to sell? We were in a call recently, and she said, Sean, I beat my year last year. I think she did over 26 million. Her best year ever was now this year, when almost everybody else's year over year went down. That's a different mindset. She didn't go out and like knock on 100 doors a day. She stayed with her relationship built business. But if somebody can do it, then anybody can do it.
Amen.
Randall.
My wife and I have kind of thought about this a lot, like trying to combat all the negative news that's out there about the current state of the market and how it's affecting the real estate market. And I think it's kind of forced us to reevaluate who our customer is. Like, our customer is not the person that bought in the last 3 or 4 years or refied in the last 3 or 4 years at a 2.3 interest rate. Like, they're just not going to move if they don't have a reason to move. So we've kind of identified, well, maybe our target customer is people that are having to move out of necessity. So people that are moving for the military, they got orders, they have a lot of equity, they want to sell and buy their house cash with that equity in North Carolina. Or it's the people that were working remotely from the Bay Area and are now going back to work because they're being called back into the office. So now they got to move back. So, I think that is our target customer now. So I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's the right way to go about it.
Randall, what consumers hear about the market, that's a really good question for us to ask, right? What are consumers hearing about the market? And then for us to, as experts, say what is true and what is untrue, and then try to address the questions that are in their mind. The market is not going to determine your success. It determines your strategy. Right?
Yes.
The market will not determine your success. It will determine your strategy. And the questions that you will put together based on what they think is true or untrue is where you start the process of winning the game.
And there's a great message coming out of your thing. First of all, good for you for thinking about this. The market's changing. That's not bad, which is kind of what Steve's been saying. There's no good or bad news. You've heard me say it over and over. There's just news. What do we do with it? You're deciding what to do with it. There's I want to say a corollary to that. You also have to be much, much more, I want to say selfish, protective maybe of your time. In this market, you have to know who your audience is and not waste any time with someone who's not absolutely ready to do business now, because they're taking you away from someone who is. when everyone was doing, because the prices kept jumping, rates were low, everybody was a client. That's not how it works now. Now you have to be very particular about who you work with. By the way, for the messaging, for those of you who don't have it, KCM is a great source of information. Keeping Current Matters is what they are. And they put out content nonstop to agents with much more accurate information on what's going on. Not always rosy, but much more accurate. And they give it to you in a deliverable format.
Yeah.
That you can just put right out there.
And I'll give you a quick little script, a dialogue, and that is for all of you on the call. If you're having a conversation with a customer that is worried about whatever the market is, what we talked about a moment ago, just remember, I'll use Sean as the seller. Just remember, Mr. Seller, Mr. Purcell, that in a shift, you're always going to have multiple markets going on at the same time. Let's talk about what that looks like for you, right? Because that is just kind of, so there could be hope here, or it could bring the level of fear. Just making a statement like that. Just remember that during a shift, there will always be multiple markets happening at the same time. It's our job, you and I, or I as your professional, to understand which market we're in, because not everything you hear is, again, maybe accurate. So that's a really good way to lead into with a seller or buyer that's concerned
and become curious.
That's
I was just looking before we went on. I was looking at the Chartwell reports that I get.
Yeah,
like I look up La Mesa
every Monday. By the way, Sean, every Monday I do that.
Every Monday, La Mesa's ticked down a little. Okay, that we're seeing that. And then I look at Lakeside. Lakeside's up. I look at Alpine. Alpine's down a little bit. Even just locally, when you talk about different markets, geographic markets are different right now. There's price pressure in Lakeside. La Mesa's cooling a bit. It depends on your price range and what's happening. But what we need, what I suggest we do, is not look at absolutes. People have an idea. I know what I need to get from my home. That's fantastic. You tell me that number, I'm never going to bring it up again, because that's not what's actually important. What's important is what's the goal? What's the dream? What do you want to have happen? Once you've given me that, let me go see if I can make that happen. What if we do sell your home for $150,000 less than you want to sell it for, but we still get you into the place you want to be? Isn't that what was important? Let's make the dream happen. If you explore their dreams, you get them off numbers that don't actually mean anything, and then they have ideas in their head that the numbers change. They're not important. What's important is the net. What's important is the next goal, the next dream that we're facilitating.
Today is this is one of those moments, Sean, where you not being together. I always like being together, you and I, because I think it creates a different dynamic. But today, watching you on the screen, just now speaking, one of the things that struck me was, and I want everyone to maybe weigh in on this. Do you get a sense that when Sean is speaking right now, that even though we may be in uncertain times, that he seems very certain about what has to happen? Do you see how strong a magnet that is? So that when you show up that way, most people live their lives, the market, whatever the market does, like it's a flip of the coin, and they're going to determine what they're going to be by not being certain about what it is, who they are, and what their message is in these moments. So watching you, Sean, that's what struck me is here we are, maybe for some folks, uncertain time, and yet your message, the way you're just speaking to your passions, is very certain, and that's a magnet that helps you in situations when you have people with nervous energy. I just wanted to make that observation.
I appreciate it, but yeah, you and I talk about that, how you show up, and he's not saying be overly optimistic. Everything's great. It's just, I know I can help. I don't know what the issue is yet, and I don't know how I'm going to help you, but I know I can help. And every one of you has that ability. That's where you're coming from, that place of conviction. I'm passionately here to help you. Now, let's talk.
All right, who else has a concern that, like on an open mic, ask us anything that we can tackle or attempt to tackle? It's another subject. Come on. Everybody's doing so great.
Coach,
are you guys all Michigan fans? So you're all just so happy today that beat the Buckeyes?
Well, you started off earlier, Steve. We'll wait and see if someone raises a hand, but talking about how sports and life play together. And there's a number of things I really like from that. One is, of all the years I played sports and then coached sports, you learn almost nothing from winning. Winning feels good, but you learn when you lose. Whether it's you get beat on a block or you lose the game or anything in between. Success
does teach us what works. We can learn that your greatest growth will come from the challenges and the adversity you face. I'm going to switch gears because Wendy raised her hand. Thank you, Wendy. But I'll just put a bow on it this way. Watching the game, like, again, as someone who's an athlete, and I watch real estate agents in a similar way when I'm coaching them or role-playing dialogues. There were two moments in that game Saturday for Michigan that just told me we were going to win the game. One was when a player lost his emotions, headbutted the Michigan player, and the Michigan player did absolutely nothing. He just stood there, and his coaches probably told him, if you're ever in a situation like that, the 15 yards is more important than your ego. Do nothing. Right. And that player just stood there and took it. And the other was watching the Ohio State quarterback. When he was under duress or adversity was setting in, he looked like he had never been prepared for that moment. Like you can see mentally, he didn't have the toughness that you need when your best is required. A lot, and I could get into that, but that's when I knew, as someone who stands back and just watches people, that I thought at that moment, okay, we got them. They're breaking. And you know what that's like as an athlete. And the people who are on this call who've been athletes know exactly what I'm talking about. And your sellers, when they ask a tough question or they have a concern and you don't show up at that level, like I said, that certainty, that is when they know maybe this isn't the person that is prepared for the moment. They're not going to rise to the moment. Wendy, what is your question? Wendy.
Good morning. I don't remember if either of you guys mentioned, are you guys going to have an in-house business planning thing before the end of the year, like in person? I know you sent the spreadsheets to us, but if we asked, but I can't remember if you said you're going to do it in person at some point. Thank you.
We kind of do it regionally. I did one earlier, and I'm doing another one on, this isn't out yet, but December 15th. I don't know, Steve, if you have one planned yet.
No, I haven't got one planned, but I've got all the time in the world to get one on the schedule. I think what Wendy's referring to is there was a time on one of our podcasts here that we had talked about doing one jointly. And I think that's what, correct me if I'm wrong, that's what she's referring to. And, maybe we could still do that before.
Yeah, that might be fun.
I think that would be fun because I do think we're aligned in so many ways, you and I, but I do think we might have a different take on how you build a plan for yourself personally. So maybe we can do that and host it, whether it be at your office or we can come up to, maybe we could do two, one for the South and one for the North.
Make it easier for people.
Yeah.
Show of hands or comment if that's something you guys would want to see. Got a few.
When we got 1, 2, 3, they're coming in now.
Yep.
There we go. So we are happy to do that. I mean, it's such a critical piece. I know you and I have talked about business plans at least 4 times in the last.
It's so important.
Yeah.
Okay, you and I afterward. Let's figure that out. And I like your idea of doing one in each region, and that way nobody has to drive too far.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's make it happen between now and Christmas. We'll pick 2 days and get it on the calendar for everybody.
Thank you, Wendy. Great suggestion. Oh, if we said Shane, you got to start with a great question. Randall, Lisa with the comments. Wendy, thank you guys. When we do an open mic, definitely want to hear from you.
Let me check the comments, Sean, because I think I just saw a couple pop in. Let's see.
Well, you know what I want to see in the comments? I want to see a commitment. Yes, I will be at one of those business plans.
Yeah.
Who's willing to make a commitment right now?
Yeah. Well, I'll be there because I have to. But I would be there if I wasn't because I think a business plan intimidates a lot of people. If you were to ask folks, like, does putting a business plan intimidate you? Most would say if they're being honest, yeah, because most have never been put in a situation where they have to really look internally to really try to dig out what it is they want to achieve. It's really not that complicated. All you need is a nudge here or there. And if someone can, like you or I, based on everything we've learned, because success leaves clues, to give people a path forward there to break down the intimidation factor of a business plan and make it so simple that it's actually something you can execute.
I would go a step further and say, we'll make it fun.
Yeah.
This doesn't have to be a drudgery,
No.
It's a fun exercise where you're looking into yourself. You're hearing from people like Steve or myself who are giving you 40 years of data to help you understand your conversions. And then you make choices on what you want to do. Okay, we have a lot of commitments.
Awesome. Thank
and we
you.
got Vanessa and then Jill have raised their hands.
All
Vanessa?
right.
Oh, they're raising their hands to say they're in, I'm thinking.
Oh, yeah, that might be it. But if you have a question in the dying minutes here, please.
You reminded me, Steve, of something that I learned a while back when you said, mentally prepared. Like the quarterback wasn't prepared for the adversity.
Right.
And the cleanest picture I ever got of that was a coach when I was actually doing triathlons who said, now, have you gotten to know your friend? That was the question he asked me out of the blue one day. Like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. He says, your friend, the one that lives in your head, the one that's going to be talking to you, the one that's going to tell you, you can't do this.
Right.
That injury's probably bad. Rates are too high. Homes won't sell. People don't want. It's all the same thing. It's your friend. He called it your friend. And he said, you can't avoid your friend. You have to make friends with them. You have to come to know them, understand that this little friend thinks he's protecting you, thinks she's doing something good for you, but they're not.
Right.
And you got to be able to hear them, say thank you, appreciate it, and keep moving on.
Yeah.
That's mentally prepared. Mentally being ready to have a conversation with your little friend that's going to tell you all the reasons why something won't work.
Yeah. And the fortitude. I think that in my lifetime, nobody has role modeled mental toughness, fortitude, conviction, passion better than Martin Luther King. There's probably not been a person alive in my lifetime that had to face down the barrel of every negative thing that could face a movement than his movement for equality. That man took every shot and showed up and never made it about being frustrated, never used anger. He used the power of his words to lead people and to lead a movement that we're still, let's be honest, we're still working towards today, but America in the world is a better place because he lived in it. And there was nothing, right, that he wasn't prepared for, nothing. So much so that intimidated enough people to where they, we know the ending of that story. So tragic as it is, but what a great leader of the world, what it means to stare down adversity and challenge and still do it with smile and passion, knowing that this is what I believe. So anyway, on that note, probably should have saved that for MLK Day, but it's still, that's one of the greatest lessons I've learned in my life, and looking at world leaders and people who make a difference in the world.
Harold, we have a couple more minutes. Anybody has any other questions, thoughts, concerns? I can. I right now. One of the things you're going to hear is the age-old holidays. Let's take the listing off the market. I want to sell my home, but not right now. And with those people, there's a couple scripts you can use, but the essence of it is this. Right now, a lot of people take their homes off the market, don't they?
Yep.
Tell me, from high school supply and demand, what happens when supply goes down? What happens to prices?
Value goes up.
Value goes up. And the reason people take off the market is because there's not as many buyers out there. But the buyers that are out there have to buy right now, don't they? Or they wouldn't be out there. So again, what happens to prices when demand goes up? The values go up.
It's almost so basic, isn't it? But a talking track that may seem, who doesn't know that? Well, the sellers might not know it, because the highest list to sell ratio historically in this country in real estate is always Q1. You have the highest listings to sale ratio. And what do you have happening? Like with just what you said, you have a constraint. We still have a lack of inventory. But if you're a seller that's worried about where the market is shifting, and you want to take one last run at trying to get a maximum equity pull in the sale of your home, this would be the time to do it, because it's always the time historically to get high dollar value because the competition is less. These people in the next 30 days that make these moves are learning. You're going to be transferred. And by the way, we live in one of the most transient cities in America, where military, biotech, and really technology. So you have biotechnology, military technology. There are people moving around all the time, but they're getting news. Guess what? You're being transferred out, or you're being transferred in. And that always creates housing demand. And so
And add to them, because you said it, the sellers don't know. I don't want to have somebody looking at my home on Christmas Day. Well, of course not. We control when people can see your home. But you tell me, is there ever time in the rest of the year your home looks as nice as it does during the holiday season?
Yeah.
Supply is down, demand is up, and your home looks its best, and you want to go off the market? This is the best time to be on the market.
Yeah.
You'll hear it. Use some form of that when you're talking to people.
Amen.